Hey, I'm Dan Murrell, and this is my review of Old, the new movie that is written and directed by M. Night Shyamalan, 7 words behind which you never really know what's going to lie. Like most people, I was a big fan of M. Night's early work. The middle part, not so much. I was a bigger fan of Glass than most people, but this movie, I didn't really know what to think about from the trailers, etc. I was thinking that it might be a return to form and not in a great way for M. Night. You never really know what to expect from M. Night Shyamalan. Some people find that enthralling, some people find that frustrating. I find it to be a little bit of a combination of both. Old is about a group of resort guests who are taken to a secluded beach where they all begin to age rapidly. Gael Garcia Bernal and Vicky Krieps play a couple whose kids age up to become Alex Wolff and Thomasin McKenzie. Rufus Sewell, Abby Lee, Ken Leung, and Nikki Asuka Bird are also on the beach, and everyone's situation gets a lot worse when the group realizes that none of them can escape the predicament that they're in. I feel like every time a new M. Night Shyamalan movie comes out, there's like a response, a counter-response, and then a counter-response from people that are in a bunch of different camps. I don't really plug into a lot of what people say about a movie before I go to see it because I want my opinion to be my own. But just because a lot of people saw this before I did, I went and saw it on the Thursday night, quote-unquote, opening night screenings, I guess is what they call them now. I'd seen it called everything from a knee-slapping, laugh it out of the theater, happening level disaster to one of the most effective horror thrillers that M. Night Shyamalan has ever made. I don't think Old is as unintentionally ridiculous as The Happening, but I also don't think that it's up there with his best work either. It's a very interesting premise, the idea that you have these people, some of them kids, some of them adults, that start to inexplicably age. You have a ticking clock, there's a lot of inherent tension there, but M. Night Shyamalan's biggest problem in this movie, and it's been his biggest problem in a lot of his movies, particularly post-2005, is that when he's writing characters, he doesn't seem to be able to make them seem human. I think it's partially a writing problem and it's partially a directing problem because he's got a talented ensemble of actors in this movie. Most of the movie takes place in one location with a group of about 10 actors, so you get to know each one of these characters pretty well. The problem is that the dialogue is consistently pretty clunky, odd, weird syntax, nothing new for an M. Night Shyamalan script.
We have to get the resort people before they leave. I think we will all have to leave this beach.
Wait, why? They left already. What happened?
The other problem when we talk about writing and directing-wise, the pacing is all wrong. A lot of times it seems like we're seeing the actors doing a read-through of the script for the first time without quite knowing where to put the beats and the pauses and the different timing and pacing of the dialogue. This is something very important. It's one of the biggest jobs that a director does, and M. Night doesn't exactly modulate these performances very well throughout the film. Bernal and Krieps have the most critical roles in the movie, and they do a really good job. We're not at a Mark Wahlberg, Zooey Deschanel situation here, and it's a good thing that they're good in their roles because otherwise the movie would absolutely crumble from underneath everybody's feet. And also with Wolff and McKenzie as their kids, that's a very difficult job for an actor. They both have to play kids who are aging into teenager/adult bodies. This is a very difficult acting challenge, and they do the best with the material that they're given, although we're going to talk a little bit more about this particular aspect a little bit later on. One of the things that makes most of M. Night Shyamalan's movies distinctive, and again, depending on who you ask, this could be a good thing or a bad thing, is just how weird they are. He includes these very odd side conversations or characters in each and every script that he does. The kid doing a rap in The Visit, talking about buffalo wings in the movie Split, just these weird things that you don't even know why they're in there. In this one, there's a few of them. The first one is a character who we later learn is a rapper called Midsize Sedan. We never actually learn his real name. He's inexplicably on the beach despite the fact that his presence seems to violate the temporal rules that were given in the movie, and there's really not any explanation for that. There's also a running joke about a Jack Nicholson Marlon Brando movie, and then whatever is going on with Ken Leung's character, he's the one that gets saddled with most of the clunkiest dialogue for some reason in this movie. I'm pretty sure his first lines are something along the lines of, "Hello, this is my wife. She has epilepsy. My name is Jared. I'm a nurse." It's very weird dialogue, and he gets the worst of it in this movie. Old is a lot of different things that M. Night Shyamalan, I wouldn't even say blends together, just kind of throws and juts up against each other that don't all really mix. There's elements of family drama, there's elements of horror, there's elements of mystery and suspense, there's elements of being a thriller, at times there's elements of being a comedy. Sometimes you can mix all of these things together in one movie, but this movie kind of jumps from this one to this one to this one to this one, and that's generally what the movie feels like. Even the way that the dialogue goes, as I mentioned before, it's almost like just something happens and something happens and something happens and something happens, and there's no real chain of events. It's just a series of things that happen throughout the film. The whole establishing of what's going on is a series of things that are establishing the same thing. You get to the beach and time is moving quicker. There are about 25 different events that all happen one right after the other that aren't really connected, that are all establishing the same thing. And that gives the middle of the movie a bit of a chunky feel because you feel like you're already ahead of the characters, and yet these things still keep happening, and you're like, yeah, I get it. Time's moving pretty fast. Where are we going with this? And then you eventually do get to a point. Of course, you have the M. Night Shyamalan ending. That's what he's known for. I'm sure it will intrigue some people. Some people might be let down. But it's not just that I wasn't that impressed with the ending of the movie. It's the fact that there are at least 2 beats also at the ending of the movie that go on past when the credits should roll. We get to the natural conclusion of the film, and then M. Night keeps going and then keeps going again. A couple of production notes, too. First of all, this is not a joke. If you're prone to motion sickness, you may want to sit in the back of the theater or maybe like not right up on the screen because M. Night's camera veers wildly throughout most of the film. It goes back and forth, and a lot of times it goes around in a circle like 2 or 3 different times. I'm not especially prone to motion sickness, but we sat fairly close to the screen, and I was feeling a little queasy during parts of the movie, so that's just kind of a PSA because the camera's flying around all over the place. Another thing that I think really could have elevated the film, Old reportedly had a production budget between $15 and $20 million, and one place where they really could have used more help is in the makeup and prosthetics department, because you have a conceit, a concept where these people are on a beach and they're aging rapidly, and particularly with the adults, you would think that the longer that they're on this beach, the more that they're going to age, but it seemed like they didn't have the capability or the money to do extensive prosthetics as some of the adults stuck around longer and longer, and they aged more and more. So that by the time you get into the third act and a lot of these adults are supposed to have aged significantly, it doesn't really look like they have. And when you have a movie called Old, it's kind of important, if you have characters that are getting old, to make them look, old. So that's somewhere where I don't know if it was a budget thing or just that they didn't have the capability to do it on location, but I think it undercut the climax of the film because you didn't see the dramatic change in these characters that I think you should have seen, again, given the concept as it's set up in the film. But there's one thing I have to talk about that is the weirdest thing in this movie and left me scratching my head more than anything else that happened. It is a spoiler, though, so I've said pretty much all I'm going to say about this film. I may tag a little bit onto the end, and I'll timestamp when the spoiler ends down there below, but I really do have to get this out if I'm talking about this review. So if you've already seen the movie, please continue. If you don't care about spoilers, then you can keep watching, but I just couldn't not address that. So last warning, we're going to talk about a fairly large spoiler from Old right now. So as I mentioned, there's a bunch of families on this beach, and you have a group of children. One of them is the little boy. He's about 6 years old. He's the one that ages up to become Alex Wolff. And then as part of another family, you have a little girl who also starts at about 6 years old. So they're aging at about the same rate. And there's a point in the movie, I think it's pretty much the first time that Alex Wolff is seen on screen, where he and this girl have both aged up to, as the credits say, the age of 15. And you see them lying next to each other in this tent, and they obviously still have the minds of children, the minds of 6-year-olds. So the bodies of 15-year-olds, but the minds of 6-year-olds. And then the next time you see them, they're walking out of the tent, and the girl is very pregnant, like 7 months pregnant. And it's made very clear that they actually had sex in that tent. He got her pregnant, and then minutes later, she gives birth to a baby on the beach, and then the baby immediately dies. Like within 30 seconds, baby's dead, and then they later bury the baby's bones on the beach. So this is weird for a number of different reasons. First of all, just the concept of 6-year-olds essentially, at least mentally, having sex with each other, just a little bit weird. Secondly, I did some research and I know that this is a plot point in the graphic novel that the movie's based off of, but in my research I also found that it's much more intertwined into the story. Here, as I mentioned earlier in the review, it's just one of the 25 different things that happens on the beach to prove that they're getting older. It's like this person gets older and they have a heart attack, this person does this, the 6-year-old has a baby, and you just keep moving. And so the fact that it has really no consequence or impact really on the story whatsoever, it's just something that happens, it makes me think, why include this in the movie? We're entering, as Bill Murray would say in Tootsie, a weird area here, far more than a weird area. And if you were going to make this a very important thing, if the baby was in some way important, or if this experience was in some way important to either one of the characters, then maybe I could see why you would go there. But when it's really of no consequence, why even go there? It's like the Romeo and Juliet thing in Transformers Age of Extinction. You just could have written her as 18 and avoided the whole conversation in that movie. Here, you could have skipped, you could cut this out entirely and it would have no impact whatsoever on the finished film, which makes me go, why would you write that into this in the first place? It is so weird, and it brings up so many awkward questions that don't need to be answered. It really took me out of the movie because I spent 15 minutes of the movie going like, wait, are they saying that? No, they are. And that's the other thing. They don't leave anything. They very much confirm, like almost direct to camera, exactly what was going on. And they have to tell the kid, they're like, you made a baby, didn't you? And he's like, yeah. It's like, you can't do that. So it's like not only confirming like, yes, you had sex and yes, you have the mind of a child. Why would you keep this in the movie? This is baffling. M. Night Shyamalan has a very long filmography. This might be in the top 3 baffling things that's ever been in an M. Night Shyamalan film. And that's saying something. Okay, spoilers are done, so in wrapping up, all I'll say is that Old is a movie that kind of seems to be at war with itself, and ultimately, I think it loses that war. There's definitely some appealing things about it, but I think the crazy, weird, and just offbeat things about it, not in a good way, distracted me enough from the overall impact of the movie that it wouldn't be a recommendation from me. It is certainly one of the most interesting movies I've seen this summer, and if you're looking for something very unconventional, something very offbeat, something you can talk to your friends about, I think Old is definitely going to be a conversation starter. And it actually got me thinking about M. Night Shyamalan, which is the fact that there are very few people that walk out of an M. Night Shyamalan movie neutral. They feel very strongly in favor usually, or oftentimes they feel very strongly against, but there's not a whole lot of people that walk out of an M. Night Shyamalan movie completely indifferent. And I have to give him a little bit of credit for this, and I don't even necessarily think if this is what he's meant to do throughout his career as a filmmaker, because he's tried to put on so many different hats as the master of suspense, or as the next Spielberg, or as the next blockbuster director with things like After Earth and The Last Airbender. I don't even know if he means it, but he may very well be one of the biggest provocateurs of our time, and that's a very important role. Is M. Night Shyamalan the most accidental provocateur of his generation? Only time will tell. But I certainly came out with feelings about Old. The negative outweighed the positive. But what did you think? Did you see the movie? Were you as weirded out by some of the same parts that I was? Let me know down in the comment section below. And as always, thank you so much for watching me here on YouTube. There is another review that came out right at the same time as this review for Snake Eyes, G.I. Joe Origins. There's a little card right up there that you can click. Hop over to see what I thought about the other major movie hitting theaters this weekend. And as always, you can check me out on Patreon at patreon.com/Dan Murrell if you want to see even more of what I'm up to. We're wrapping up July with Movie Club. Our patron AMAs coming up this weekend. Lots of great stuff left to do this month on Patreon. I'd love to have you be a part of it. Thank you so much for watching this review. Click over onto the Snake Eyes review right now. And if you like this one, like, share, subscribe, do all the great things on YouTube. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you next time. Bye.